After an injury, most people rush in to either stretch it or strengthen it, but neither of those things should come first. But rather, the first thing you train after an injury is something else entirely. I learned this the hard way after being in over a dozen car accidents, being in pain for over a decade, and seeing more doctors than I can count who all happened to miss this step. Every single time I skipped it, I would flare up even worse than before. However, when I finally stopped skipping it, everything changed. The first thing you train after an injury is not strength, it is not mobility, it's tolerance. Your body has to relearn movement and that loading it is safe. That's the starting line. After an injury, your body reacts to load stronger than it used to. Strength training assumes that your body is ready for that load, and stretching pushes your body into ranges it does not yet feel safe in. So if you go into strength or mobility, it might feel good in the moment. However, it often does not stick. And that's when people think, oh, I must have re-injured something, or I can't do this anymore. I have a bad back. I have a bad shoulder. I have a bad knee. They assume that they cannot do the movements anymore because they injured themselves and they keep flaring up. Most of the time you just skipped a step, which is rebuilding tolerance. To train tolerance, it must be a low threat, controlled exposure, a small dose, and be easily repeatable. It's just enough stimulus to send a signal to your brain that the activity that you're doing is safe again, but not enough to trigger a setback. And yes, in the beginning, it should feel almost too easy. To someone who is watching, it may appear that you're doing some simple stretching or some super easy resistance training. However, since your goal is to rebuild tolerance, the way you go about to achieve it is completely different. For example, imagine a powerlifter, a bodybuilder, and an endurance athlete all walk into the gym and perform a simple back squat. To the casual viewer, it may appear that they're all doing the same exercise. However, but to each other, the lifters, they may view that as the other two are doing the exercise completely wrong. So why is this? It's because the weight that is being used, the amount of reps being performed, the speed of the exercise, and the rest in between sets are all different among the lifters because all their goals are completely different. One is training for strength, the other is training for muscle growth, and the other endurance. So the way they carry out the exercise is completely different. The same goes for you when you're trying to rebuild tolerance. It's not the exercise that necessarily matters, but it is how you carry it out that will allow you to progress and receive the result that you're looking for. The only goal at this stage is to teach your nervous system that the movement won't harm you anymore. During sleep, your brain will adapt and remove restrictions it previously set on your movement, allowing you to do more next time. However, if you push yourself too hard and get a flare up, the opposite is true. Your brain will add restrictions to your movement because it will believe that you're still injured. Many times you could feel just a little extra stiff. However, this means that your body is putting up its guard, protecting you from accessing that range. This simply means you did too much. So let's talk about the process to build your tolerance. There are two things to keep in mind when it comes to rebuilding your tolerance. One, you want to teach your body to move in a greater range of motion. And two, you want to teach your body to be stronger throughout that range of motion, emphasizing on the end range. Remember, you are not trying to gain strength or flexibility at this stage. So the intensity that is used is much lower. If you keep your goal on building tolerance, naturally strength and mobility will follow. Of course, the exercise of your choosing will all be different depending on the injury that you're recovering from. However, for this example, I will be performing the Jefferson curl, which is a foundational exercise I use in rebuilding my back strength when I couldn't even bend over to pick up my kids' toys. I recommend staying in the higher end of the rep range with a load that will have you between 15 to 20 repetitions and leaving at least 5 repetitions in the tank to start. However, if you're only using your body weight and can only do 10 repetitions like I could in the beginning with the Jefferson curl, you can perform 5 reps and leave 5 repetitions in reserve. Another option is to perform the movement with the assistance of a resistant band. Remember, the more reps you can perform safely without pain or a flare-up is more feedback to the brain that the movement is safe again. If possible, with each rep, go a little deeper into the end range, but be careful not to force it if your body doesn't want to go any further. When it comes to isometrics, like this chin tuck exercise I use for rebuilding my neck, I started with 30 seconds, even though I could go on for a minute. Some sensation is normal, however, you should finish the session without feeling any pain whatsoever. The next day, reassess how you feel. In my experience, if you did too much, 48 hours is the peak when you'll feel it the most. If you have a flare up at all, scale back. If you work through the pain, it will have the opposite result from your effort. Instead of having feedback to the brain that the movement is safe, it will have feedback that the movement is no longer safe, and it will put up limitations guarding you from accessing greater range of mobility and strength. However, if you wake up feeling manageable fatigue or soreness and it feels normal, keep the intensity exactly where it's at. But if you wake up feeling great, like you did nothing at all the next day, then go ahead and scale up the intensity a bit. Keep in mind, if you crank up the intensity too quickly and try to shortcut the process, you'll probably end up regretting it. It's a lot like the game red light, green light. If you move forward without pain, you'll get closer to winning. However, if you move along too quickly and trigger a flare up, you'll have to start all over from the beginning. So don't shortcut the process. Build a solid foundation and it will last. This is done by training tolerance first, then strength and mobility will naturally follow. I realize everyone has unique injuries. If you would like a video on how to apply this to your specific injury, comment below and I'll do my best to demonstrate. And hit subscribe if you would like to learn how to prevent future injuries by building a resilient body.